Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you are an Angular developer, get ready to be excited because Angular 20 is here, and it's not just another minor update. This is a massive leap forward for the framework. Google is doubling down on making Angular faster, more reactive, and honestly, a lot more fun to work with. We are talking about huge improvements in performance, how we write our code, and the overall developer experience. So, in this video, we are going to break down the most exciting new features in Angular 20. Okay, so we will look at code example and explain what these changes means for you and your projects, and we will be covering the new stable control flow syntax that will change how you write your template forever, and the incredible view transition API for creating slick native like page animation, a sneak peek at signal based forms, the game changing zoneless change detection, big improvement to server side rendering and hydration, and finally the now default white and ES build tooling and a cleaner CLI. Okay, so this is a big one, so let's jump right in. Okay, so the first feature @control flow is now stable. Alright, first up, let's talk about something that will immediately change your day-to-day coding. So the built-in control flow syntax is now stable. So for years we have relied on directives like *ng if, *ng for, and *ng switch. They worked, but let's be honest, the syntax could feel a bit chunky, especially for newcomers. All those asterisks and the need to import common module, well, you can say goodbye to all that. Okay, so what does this mean in simple terms? Okay, so think of it as a cleaning up your HTML template. The new @if, and @switch blocks are more intuitive and look a lot more like a regular JavaScript. This makes your template cleaner, easier to read, and less prone to errors. Okay, so let's look at the quick comparison. Okay, so on the left side you see the old way. We have a *ng if with and else pointing to a separate ng template. Then we have *ng for to look through our items. Okay, so now look at the right side. This is the new stable syntax in Angular 20. Okay, so right side is the new way. Okay, so see how much cleaner that is, right? The @if, @else structure is immediately familiar, and the @for loop is not only easier to read but also more powerful. Notice the property is now mandatory, which helps Angular optimize rendering performance in a big way. Plus, we get the handy @empty block for when our list is empty. No extra *ng if needed. This is a huge win for developers' experience and performance. And since it's stable, you can and should start using it in all your new projects. Okay, so now let's move to the second feature, view transition API. Okay, so next up, something that will add a layer of professional polish to your application. The view transition API is now stable. So have you ever used a mobile app and noticed how smoothly the screens animate and transition into one another? That's the kind of polish users love. Traditionally, achieving this on the web required complex CSS or bringing in heavy animation libraries. Not anymore. The view transition API is a web standard that Angular now supports natively, making it incredibly easy to create smooth animated transitions between routes. Okay, so then how do we use it? Okay, so it's surprisingly simple. First, you enable it in your application's router configuration. So you can see this app.config.ts file on the screen. Okay, so just by adding with view transitions, your app gets a default crossfade animation between pages. But the real magic happens when you want to animate specific element. Imagine you have a list of products, and when you click one, you navigate to the product detail page. We can make the product image appear to seamlessly move from the list to the detail page. You just need to give the corresponding elements on both pages the same unique view transition name. Okay, so here in our product list, we will give the image a unique transition name. And then on the product detail page, we use the exact same transition name for that product's image. So you can see on the example. Okay, so in the second example, with just that, the browser will create a stunning and smooth transition, and it's an incredibly powerful way to elevate your user experience, and it's now production ready. Now, let's move to the third feature, signal based forms. Okay, now let's talk about something that's in the developer preview but give us a glimpse into the future of forms in Angular, signal based form. Okay. So forms are central to the most web applications. For a while now, we have had a template driven and reactive forms, right? The introduction of signals in Angular 16 opened up a new world of reactivity, and now that power is coming to forms. So what's the big deal, right? The core philosophy is simple. You own the data. Instead of the form creating and managing its own state, the form becomes a direct reactive reflection of your data, which you manage with the signals. Okay, so this promises to make forms management more intuitive, reduce boilerplate, and improve performance by leveraging the fine-grained reactivity of the signal. So let's look at what this might look like. So in the example, because this is built on the signal, when you update a form field, the underlying user profile signal updates automatically, and if you programmatically change the signal's value, the form instantly replaces that change. No more .patch value or .set value, and no need for subscribing to the value changes. Again, this is in developer preview, which means the API could change. It's here for us to experiment and provide feedback, but it shows the clear direction Angular is heading, a more reactive and simplified future. Now move to the fourth picture. So alright, brace yourself for the biggest, most fundamental change in this list, zoneless change detections. So this is now in an experimental phase, and it's a huge deal. To understand why, let's have a quick history lesson. So for its entire life, Angular has used a library called zone.js, right, to figure out when to update the screen. So how did zone.js work? Most of you already knows, but let me explain. So in simple terms, zone.js is like a monkey patches all common asynchronous browser events like clicks, timers, or HTTP requests. When any of these events finish, zone.js would tell Angular, hey, something happened. You should probably check the entire application for changes and update the screen. So this worked, but it was a bit like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. It added some performance overhead and could sometimes lead to confusing behavior. Now, welcome to the zoneless future. Okay, so with the rise of Signal, Angular now has a new, much more precise way of knowing what change. When you update a signal, Angular knows exactly which part of your UI depend on that signal and only updates those tiny pieces. This means we don't need zone.js to watch over everything anymore. So to enable this, you bootstrap your application with a new provider. So this is the main.ts file. Okay, so by going zoneless, you can expect a better performance, smaller bundle size since zone.js is no longer included, right? And clever debugging with simple stack traces. Okay, so this is still experimental, so it's a big step to take for an existing application, but for new projects, it's definitely the future, offering a more modern and efficient way to build Angular apps. Okay, now let's move to the feature 5. Okay, so let's quickly touch on some fantastic improvement to server-side rendering or SSR with what's called incremental hydration. First, what is hydration? So in SSR, the server sends a fully rendered HTML page to the browser, so the user sees content almost instantly. So hydration is the process where Angular on the client side wakes up that static HTML and make it interactive. So before, Angular had to hydrate the entire page at once, but now the incremental hydration, which is stable in Angular 20, we can hydrate the application in chunks. We can use the @defer blocks to tell Angular to only load and hydrate a component when it's needed. For example, when it enters the viewport. So below is the example of @defer block. Okay, so In this example, the app heavy comment section component and its JavaScript won't even be downloaded until the user scroll to it. This dramatically improves initial load times and your core web vitals, which is great for both users and SEOs. Now let's move to feature 6 and 7. Okay, so and finally a couple of great developer experience update. First, the modern and super fast build tool, White and ES build, are now the default for all Angular projects. This was introduced in previous version but is now fully embraced. What does this mean for you? Faster ng-serve startup times, near instant hot module replacement HMR, and quicker production build, less waiting and more coding. Second, the Angular team has cleaned up the CLI output. When you run the command, the logs in your terminal are smarter, less clutches, and help you focus on important informations. It's a small change but a very welcome one. Okay, so let's read the conclusion now, and that's a wrap on the incredible new feature in Angular 20. So from the new stable control flow syntax with transition that make our app feel amazing to the groundbreaking future of zoneless application and signal-based form, Angular is making huge strides. This release is all about better performance, a more modern and intuitive developer experience, and setting the stage for an even faster and more reactive feature. What feature are you most excited about? Let me know down in the comment. I'd like to hear your thought. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content on Angular and modern web development. Thanks for watching and happy coding.